And that's when the audience member is sitting there feeling like, oh my God, that is me. Storytelling is so revealing. And when it's done right, it's revealing the right thing to the right people at the right time. And when you feel that connection, it's magic.
Welcome to Success Reimagined. I am Dr. Amna Shabbir, your host on this journey to thrive at the intersection of ambition and wellness. Today's guest turned storytelling into a movement. Jeff Polish is the founder and the executive director of the Monti, a live, no notes, true personal storytelling series that's been lighting up stages across North Carolina since 2008. What started as a small community event has grown into a powerful platform where people from all walks of life share stories that are raw, real, and unforgettable. Jeff holds a PhD in molecular cell biology, has been named a hero of the New South by Southern Living, received the Indies Arts Award, and is known for helping people transform vulnerability into connection. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. So I'm just going to jump right in. You trained as a scientist and then you taught high school science, and now you are leading one of the most powerful storytelling movements in the country. What sparked the shift and why did you create the Monty?
That's a great question. I mean, and the answer to that is it's lengthy. So let's just jump right in. First, I want to address the science part. Like, how does a scientist become a storyteller? How does a scientist then shift into a career in storytelling? And I'll say that I love science. I always have loved science, and I've had an affinity for science for my entire life. But while I was doing the science and my PhD, isolated in a lab bench, just experiment after experiment alone, I realized that while I love science, I don't necessarily love doing the science. It's lonely and it's very thankless work. And I was a much better communicator. I just knew, like, every time I gave talks, about my work, that's where I felt most alive. And that's where I felt most connected to other people, was when I was sharing out my science. But then to jump back, there was a part of me that was that that just always knew that storytelling was going to be a huge part of my life because it was built into me from a very early age. It was baked in. And it goes back to when I was about 4 years old, when my parents told me that they were divorcing. I mean, it was so matter of fact. I was sitting in the back of a car. We were about to leave the car to go into a restaurant for dinner. And my father, puts the car in park, takes the keys out of the ignition, and he turns around and he says, your mother and I have something we need to tell you. We're divorcing and daddy's not going to live with you anymore. And I know now, because he's told me that it was really important that I understood this and that I was okay with this. And so when he said, are you okay? Do you understand? I nodded, and then we went in and ate dinner. But the truth of the matter is I was 4 and I didn't understand a word of what he was saying. In fact, everything that happened from that moment on with my nuclear family was confusing and chaotic and traumatic. And I just had no control over anything. And so the one thing that I did have control over is what goes on inside my head. I could take the thing that I was observing and I could replay it in my mind, and I could create a story based on what I was seeing to help me interpret my life, my world. And as the days went on, as the years went on, I began to separate reality from, the stories in my head. And the thing that I was seeing outside in the world was gray and dark. And I don't know, it's just completely void of happiness. But what happened in my head was full of color and vibrancy, and I had control over it. And it was just me telling myself stories over and over again. Like, for me, I knew from an early age that stories had currency, just the creation of my own story, the interpretation of my life, and the creation brought me understanding and fulfillment. But I was a withdrawn kid. I was very, like, shy, and I lived in my head because of these stories. And so I went through life. If you were to see me walking around as a child or even as a young adult, you would just see me with my head down, just completely oblivious to the things going on around me. And it was only in college that I realized that I could use these stories of my early life to connect with other people. So there's one thing about understanding your situation in your life by telling yourself stories, by creating the stories, by interpreting. But there's another thing that happens when you share those stories with others and you realize the connective tissue that can be created between two people or many people when somebody shares a story that is true and real and vulnerable and is what was baked inside of me. This love of story, the knowledge that stories are powerful, connective, pieces of, I don't know, tissue, but non physical tissue. More than science, I loved what a story could do. If I always joked about this with my friend Monti, by the way, who I named the organization after. We were college friends. We said if we could figure out how to talk for a living, how to tell stories for a living, we're going to leave everything behind and follow this pursuit. And that's what I'm doing.
So many thoughts. So many thoughts.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. How powerful. I felt moments of my own childhood reflected when you shared that. And I know that I talk a lot about perfectionism and all of these things that are happening around us, but really at the end of the day, it is the stories that we've been telling ourselves since forever, the stories we choose to believe, how we interpret. But you're absolutely right. When someone gets on the stage and they communicate, there's just absolutely something transformative that happens. But before I jump ahead, well, let's slow down again and take us to this moment. So you have your friend who's named Monty. I'm not going to call him the Monty
Yeah.
or the Monty, right? And you decide this, you're going to do this for a living. How do you actually bring this out into like how was that journey for you?
Yeah. So it was a safe decision because at the time that I started the Monty, I was an out of work teacher, earned my PhD. I had taught biology for ninth graders for about 3.5 years. We moved to North Carolina, and that's where I was out of work because I couldn't find a high school teaching job. And so I was pushing my 18-month-old on a swing every day while I was also trying to reach out to schools. And I thought to myself, I want to do something creative. I want to try something out. What would happen if I invited people to share personal stories in a room in front of an audience? I'll be one of those people. And, you know, how would that feel? What would that be like? And, there's very little risk involved. I'm a teacher. I'm not trying to make a living off of story. I just wanted to do something creative and make myself feel alive. So I contacted some local authors, and there are many of them in this area, and poets, novelists, and I reached out to them and they loved the idea. They didn't know me from anything. I mean, I was new to the area and I was a teacher, but I had an interesting idea where they're not going to be asked to read from their published works. They were going to be asked to tell true stories about their lives. And then I wrote a press release, first time I'd ever done that. I found a venue and then we put it all together. And it was, well, there were some growing pains at the beginning, but that first event there was enough there that people were like, this guy's onto something. He's doing something really interesting and we want to be a part of it. And so it grew from that one event, which was in a private room of a restaurant in Chapel Hill. The restaurant no longer exists, but every time I pass that space, I'm always like, this is where the Monty started. And I kept doing it and I kept refining what I had started. And now I feel like it's a well-oiled machine. But what's so great about the machine is that it's simple. It's a person standing in front of an audience in a room. That's all it is. That's all it is. It's as simple as can be. It's just we're doing it in a way that is inviting it's warm, and it's just refined. Over 17 years, we've done a lot to refine the art of the Monty, if you will.
I remember the day I was an audience member at the Monty, and I was not prepared for what was about to happen. I cried, I laughed, and in a very short span of time, I felt like I had been on an adventure. I felt every emotion that was accessible to the human mind, and, I completely I can't articulate. I tried to prep for the interview as well, but I truly can't communicate how I felt that day and how unprepared I was to feel all of that. I left the kids home with my husband. I come back and he's like, "What happened to you?" Because I clearly I had cried and there were strangers. It was just such a powerful experience. And if I'm looking at this from the lens of someone who has not experienced storytelling in that refined, like you use the word refined form, it was one of the most refined forms of storytelling that I've ever experienced. What is it about storytelling in your experience that creates that kind of transformation, both for the person who is listening and the person who's telling the story?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question there's a lot to say about that, in the answer to that question. But I will say this, that when somebody is doing it right, and storytelling is firing on all cylinders, what's happening is that somebody is telling you about a time in their life that mattered to them. But they're not just recounting the narrative. They're not just telling you what happened. They're actually showing you something that cannot possibly be seen. And that is when storytelling is working. And what I mean by that is that there's a thing that happened, which is a part of every story. But more than what happened, we have to understand as the listener why it matters, why it mattered to the person who experienced it, what motivated them through those experiences, how they were transformed by what happened. These are things you can't see if you were just watching it. How it transformed them. And when a storyteller shows recounts those things and communicates the thing that can't be seen, that's when an audience member starts to feel connected to the human being, thinking to themselves, wow, it's like this person is holding up a mirror and I'm looking at myself. I might not have experienced that exact thing, but I know what it's like to feel that very thing that is being communicated on stage. I know that they don't feel so alone after listening to that story. They feel deeply connected to it. And also, I want to talk a little about the thing that's not easily seen that I was talking about. It's almost like when you're looking at a glacier, right? You could see it on TV, or if you're on a boat somewhere and you see this glacier sticking up, you see that. That's the action of a story. But it's what's underneath the surface of the water. That's the thing that can't be seen. And yet that makes up the biggest part of the glacier itself. And when I use this analogy in my workshops, using the glacier, the glacier extends way down. And when I talk about the glacier, the deeper you go, that's where more vulnerable things are. Where if I want to show you a part of myself that can't be seen, but if I show you too much, that's a little risky. I'm revealing a lot about myself. And when I say risky, the risk of showing vulnerable things is that I'll be rejected if I reveal it. But more often than not, when you reveal those things in the right way, you're not rejected, you're accepted, which is what we crave. We crave acceptance. And that's when the audience member is sitting there feeling like, oh my God, that is me. Storytelling is so revealing. And when it's done right, it's revealing the right thing to the right people at the right time. And when you feel that connection, it's magic. It's what you felt that night. Storytelling is never just about what happened. It's about what it all means. And we have to go beneath the surface. And if we don't, then it's not really what storytelling can be at its best. So that's what we're trying to get at. I mean, people, I want to tell you what the process is like at the Monti, because people will pitch stories to us. We have an event coming up. We ask people to send us their ideas. in 200 words. They send it to us and we review it as a team. And then we follow up with each person. Not everyone. I mean, sometimes it's like, I don't think this is really getting at something that we can work with, or it's not fitting with the vision that we might have for the event.
Mhm.
So we whittle it down, but then we follow up with people. And in that follow up, what we're doing is we're asking questions that go beneath the surface. What is this really about? How did it impact you? Because most people are really telling us what happened, but we want to know why it matters. And if they're willing to go there, if they're willing to be vulnerable, if they're willing to explore something really foundational to their identity and being, then we are definitely willing to work with them. And we want to let them know that they're safe all the time, the whole time. That being said, they're always safe with me when I'm working with them to develop their story. But when they're on stage, I mean, it's still an act of faith. It's still an act of bravery and courage to get up and reveal themselves to a room full of strangers. And I can do everything I can as a professional coach and storyteller to tell them that they're ready, but they still have to do the job, put themselves out there, make themselves seen, and then hopefully receive back from their audience at the same time. It doesn't always happen, but it happens most of the time when people go in with the right intentions. And that's another thing that I want to point out is that setting an intention is really important in storytelling. What is it that you want out of this experience? Because some people come in with an intention that I don't think is productive. And yet other people do come in with intentions that are productive. And if somebody comes in with the wrong intention, I try to, in some way that isn't too critical, try to steer them to something that might be more productive. And let me give you an example of that. Some people love telling stories because of the way it makes them feel. Right? They're at a party. They like holding court. They like being impressive. Oh, gather around, people. I'm about to tell you that story that I have in my back pocket that you're just going to love. And the energy that they're receiving from others is empowering. And that's very one-sided, right? This is feeding me. This is about me. But there's another side to it. Those are the takers. I like to call them the takers. Okay. Then there's the giver, the person who is not trying to suck up the energy in the room at the party, but they get into conversation with somebody. And based on what they're talking about or what they're hearing from the other person, they're inspired to share this one thing. It's not in their back pocket. It's not part of their party routine, but it is inspired by the moment. And they share a story that is revealing, that is specific to the moment, that is specific to the person with whom they're speaking, and deeply matters to the human being that they're talking with. What happens in that moment is connection. It's honest. It's real. It's happened organically. And it's not about the person telling the story. It's equally about the person that's standing across from them. It is for them. And it's for the speaker too. Like we all get something out of any time that we're speaking. I feel great about myself because I feel connected in this moment to another human being. And that's enriching. So there are a lot of people that come to the Monti because they want to feel the energy from the room. And they feel like it looks to me that they have all the answers. But anytime you get up on stage, you can't possibly have all the answers. You've prepared, you've done the work, we've worked together. I know you have a good story, you know you have a good story, but you still have to connect. And you can't guarantee connection with a room full of people because they are part of the process too. They will decide if they feel connected to you. And if you stand up on a stage or at a party and you're revealing something with humility, knowing that all you can do is your part in that moment, and you respect your listener enough to decide if that touches them, I mean, that's a huge part of success. I'm putting something out there into the universe for you. Will you accept me? if I tell you this thing that I experience and why it matters to me, will you understand it? Would you have made the same decisions? Would you go on this journey with me? Will you even like me? Will you love me? I mean, all these questions are in play when somebody's telling a story versus the person who thinks that they've got it all figured out, where they're like, you're going to love me because this is amazing and I'm amazing. And I can spot them a mile away. I've been doing this 17 years. I know what they look like. I know what they act like. And it's the people who tell stories with honesty and great intention for connection. Those are the people I really want to work with.
That was so powerful. And I love that you talk about intention because one of the recent experiences, maybe the only experience that I can say was as close to as maybe the Monty was when I gave the TEDx talk, and we're recording this a couple of days after. Jeff, thank you so much for being in the audience there.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
I just felt so vulnerable because there was no notes, there was nothing. It's me standing in front of the audience, and it was not necessarily, of course, it was an idea word spreading, but even just that, the act of standing without any barrier between yourself and the audience, it was just something very different for me. I couldn't hide behind a laptop, a clicker, a slide, a lectern. There was nothing. And
Mhm.
I think there's something absolutely so powerful about that. On the same lines, you're talking about intention and energy coming from an attitude of self serving versus serving and connecting with the audience. What are some other ways that you've seen people really just bomb a story? Because you've been doing this for so long. And we all want to learn, we want to get better at storytelling.
Well, yes, bombing happens. It does, and it's not fun. It's not fun at all. It's not ideal. I'll tell you why people would bomb. They're unprepared. When you're unprepared, it's clumsy. It's not streamlined. A story, there's a lot of over talking.
Yes.
Maybe sometimes there's even under talking where you're not explaining something enough that people can follow, or you're saying too much where people are just like, let's move this along. A lot of ums, a lot of backtracking. And yeah, so preparation is critical. Now, here's another reason why somebody would bomb: over preparation.
Mm.
And this is not intuitive to a lot of people because this is something that you know something about as well, which is when you over prepare, it's too perfect.
Yes.
And something that I say to my storytellers, this is right before we come out for a show, I say to them, your goal tonight, you might have a goal of delivering your story perfectly without flaws, without stumbles. But I think that that is maybe not the right thing to focus on. Um, because I think perfection is overrated. I think that, yeah, I mean, we like perfection. I mean, we've all seen this. We've watched a video of somebody giving a TED talk, or we've been at a graduation speech where we're like, this person standing up there is so refined. Oh my God, they're just so poised. I want to be that. But while they while what they're doing is they're aspiring to look like that, what they're not doing is relating to that person,
Mm.
or oftentimes not relating to that person.
Yeah.
Because instead of perfection, we should seek to be human. Okay. And humans are not perfect. That's why I want to keep people away from the ideal of perfection, because we don't talk perfectly ever, just in our daily life. And so we shouldn't always strive to talk perfectly. We should be clear and concise, yes, but more than anything, I want your humanity to be on full display. I want you to stumble and be okay with that. I want you to be connected to the words that you're saying so much that when you reveal that thing that's under the water, that's unseen, and you become emotional, that you get a little choked up, I don't want you to apologize for it. There's nothing wrong with being human. Nothing wrong with that. And getting emotional is human. So move through it. Don't apologize. Move through it. I mean, the truth is that when somebody gets emotional, It's like my cha-ching moment. I mean, it's not, it doesn't, I mean, we don't have a huge lucrative business here, but what I'm saying
Yeah.
is that's the moment where it all happens, where people grab the arms of their seat and they lean in. That's the magic moment. So when somebody is over prepared, they lose connection to what they're saying. Oftentimes, look, I can't generalize, but oftentimes they're losing connection to what they're saying, the content, in favor of perfectly delivering the words. I want people to be prepared enough that they're still connected to what they're saying, deeply connected, so that they can be moved and the audience can be moved. And then the other thing that causes people to bomb is lack of humility. And we've
Right.
already talked about this. When somebody stands up there as if they have all the answers, you're going to love me. I know you're going to love me. There's no humility. I mean, great storytelling is an ask. If I tell you this, will you connect with me and will you connect with what I'm talking about? That's the ask. So yeah, I think those are the main things. I mean, it's unbelievable when somebody takes the stage and they're like, "I'm about to perform for you." I mean, it is just astonishing to me, but it happens. We see it.
Most of our conversations were always, I feel, swimming in the shallow, and we really don't want to get deep. I know that my true friends that get to hang out with me and have known me for years know that I joke a lot. But that's not the image or the person that for the longest time I felt like I was not allowed to be funny because I'm a physician and there's a
Mm,
certain decorum that you're supposed to follow and there's
hmm
professionalism and what if I crack this joke and my patient saw is she going to respect me to take her diabetes medication next time. So there was all these ways that I was hiding. So for me, one of the biggest ways that I can actually be vulnerable is when I allow myself to be who I am, which is naturally somewhat funny. That doesn't mean I'm cracking jokes. It's like this very dry, sarcastic brand of humor that only few get to see. So that has always been somewhat inaccessible when I get on the stage. And you're absolutely right when you're prepared, when you're talking and you prepare too much, because for the longest time, that has been the pursuit of perfection has been relentless and
hmm
360 everywhere. And again, with the I feel with social media and all our amazing AI editing tools, all the ums and the ahs and the natural flow of human conversation is just disappearing.
hmm Oh yeah, you're absolutely right about that. I love seeing the cracks. I love it so much. And there's something else I want to talk about that involves the cracks and the discomfort that we as a society feel when those cracks are visible. And I talk about this in my workshops quite a bit. I'm sure that you could tell me that this scenario that I'm about to outline is familiar to you in some way, whether you've observed it or experienced it firsthand. And I've observed and experienced this firsthand. You're in, you're in a coffee shop or eating lunch with a friend and you're talking. It's been a while since you've seen each other. And at some point, one of the two in the conversation starts to get real. I mean, real, real. Um, I'm having trouble in my marriage. My marriage is ending or we're separating or whatever. We're having issues with our teenager who's been acting out something. And then all of a sudden, that person starts to get emotional, starts to cry. And the other person sitting across the table says, "Oh no, 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 no! Don't cry! Don't cry! It's okay! It's okay! Everything's going to be okay! Don't cry!" So, have you experienced this or seen this
Multiple
before?
times,
Of
multiple
course.
times, yeah, of course,
So,
personally and on the other side.
right, exactly. So, we as human beings have the ability to be very kind to one another and to be cruel to one another. And I'm not going to rate this moment on the spectrum between kindness and cruelty because the intention of the listener or the person saying, no, no, it's going to be okay, is to be kind. The intent is kindness. But the reality is that it's actually more cruel than anything. Because you're doing two things in that moment. You're saying to the person who is expressing their vulnerability, don't do that. Don't do that. It's actually making me uncomfortable. That's what they're saying. Don't do that. Don't. Okay, you've chosen this moment to reveal yourself to me, and I am telling you not to do it. The other thing that they're saying is that everything is going to be okay. And they just don't know that to be true. It's like when you watch a medical drama on television and the doctor says to the patient, I'm going to fix you, I promise. And I'm just like, you blew it. You just lost me right there. I mean, doctors can't say that, can they?
Never. They shouldn't. And
But
another
that's the
reason why I
thing.
don't watch medical dramas.
Right. They're the worst. But that's the thing is that what is wrong with being in that moment in the cafe where your friend starts to reveal themselves, starts to show you what's beneath the surface? In that one moment, they're revealing who they are. What would be so bad about just being present? Not trying to solve their problems, just listening, holding space, not telling them everything is going to be okay, but telling them I'm here with you right now. That is also modeled at the Monty every night. Because when somebody's standing up there getting real, it would be totally inappropriate for somebody to be like, you're going to be okay. They just have to sit there. That's the decorum. That's what's being asked of the audience. Just sit there and bear witness. That's a model for what we need to be out in public. I love those moments when somebody is so vulnerable and revealing and where the other person can just bear witness to the whole thing. I wish more of us could be like that.
I couldn't agree more. The word that really stuck for me was bear witness because a lot of times we feel nobody is actually seeing us. We're just going through the motions. And do you actually truly see me? I work with a lot of physicians that are going through moral injury and distress, caring for other humans. The pain is largely unwitnessed. And so, absolutely, if we could all just hold space for each other, that would be so huge. And I feel that when we tell that other person in that moment, it's going to be okay. And, oh, you don't have to cry, which, yes, I would. Well, how should I admit? I've heard that many times. I must admit that
Hmm.
those are lost opportunities. Those are
Hmm.
lost opportunities for connection and truly the humans that have allowed me to just hold that space or when I have held that space for other humans, only magic has followed. And that is right there a great strategy for well-being and just human connection, however you want to call it.
And I'll be completely honest too, that I haven't always been that like that. There are times where I probably shut people down, but I've learned so much over the last 17 years doing this work and how to hold space, how to be curious and not judgmental, and how to celebrate people for everything that they bring to the table. And I mean, I love it. I love when people are willing to share. There is a book that I absolutely adore that's about this seen and unseen thing. It's called You're Not Listening.
Mm.
It's this beautiful book. Really, it just kicks off by saying that since the advent of social media, there have been more cases or more people reporting loneliness in their life, depression and mental illness because they don't feel seen. They don't feel heard. And this book is really about how we can help to be there for other people, how we can really listen and let people know that we're listening and understand them. And I think that is just too important. And social media, we could still have social media and have people showing up for each other. But unfortunately, it's not happening or at a high rate.
I think it's largely not happening. I mean, we can just be honest. There
Yeah.
are, of course, there are advantages about social media. We connected on social media at the start, and
Yes.
there's so much positivity in that regard. But again, it's a tool. I do feel that we need some strict boundaries surrounding it. And there is a lot of data talking about social comparison, talking about all of these things. But I think that the most important part is our presence. We're really never present. And how can you hold space for somebody when you're not really there?
Mhm.
And I'm not talking like somebody who's always there wherever she is, but yeah, most of the time that's when I realize that I have mom guilt. Okay, let's take that as an example. I didn't get to spend this much time with my children when I was in medical training. I was a resident, so I'm sad. I'm upset, and then I'm doing bedtime, and they're both there, except that my brain is somewhere else and I'm closing charts or ruminating about something else or thinking about what I need to do or something that caught my attention on the endless loop of Instagram reels. And then when I started realizing that, now I've started to create some tech-free spaces. And in my house, one of the best way to hold myself accountable is to tell my now 9-year-old, mommy will not have her phone upstairs. And then she makes sure she's like, I thought we weren't doing that in case I sneak it up. But we're never if we're not truly present in the moment, a lot of connection is lost, absolutely.
Yeah, that's right. It's so profound. You said something that really that I've thought of quite a few times since I experienced your TEDx talk, and that was that anecdote about your daughter and her. I hope it's okay that I reveal this.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Yeah, about the grade that she received on a test, I think, because I experienced a very similar thing with a student when I was teaching, where I wasn't ready to give back the bio tests to the students, but because not everyone had taken it, but I was willing to reveal the grade, so I called the students up at the end of class one at a time, and I revealed their grades to them. And this one student I had came up and she received a 95 on this rather large test, bio test that I had given. And she was crestfallen. I mean, she just couldn't deal with it. I was like, what?
Yeah.
You nailed it. You've rocked this. You showed a mastery of this material, 95% of this material. And she said, it's one way to see it, or you could also look at it as I failed
Yeah.
5% of this material. And I was blown away by that. And then she went back to her seat. She, I mean, you know, the next year she had to leave school with an eating disorder.
Wow.
It's so heartbreaking to see this level of trauma and that's coming out of these feelings that I have to be flawless. Yeah, but I mean, it's present, and I would love to move the dial on this in some way. And I hope that the dial is being moved, but I'm just not sure. I mean, you're doing a great job of that as well, so I'm grateful for you.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you for sharing that. I feel I am just my goal has been to bear witness and to talk about it because this whole journey about learning more about perfectionism and where does this stem and not doing lab research, right? It started with storytelling actually. So I just had to step away in that moment when she called herself stupid for getting a 99 out of 100. And this is an elementary school kid looking at me. And I had to say there's something fundamentally wrong with this. And I am this supportive, positive energy mother. Like she's got all this. She believed she could, so she did. Nevertheless, she persisted on both sides of her nightstand. And still this is what she internalized. This is what she took away. And so for me, absolutely that was a moment of reflection. There are lots of wonderful researchers that are bringing this to our attention and talking about it, but I think it's not enough. And
Hmm.
we are all perpetually feeling like we're not enough. And so the way I look at the art of storytelling is bringing that humanity, bringing that connection. And humanity is that. Like you are going to make a mistake. Share that. People
Hmm.
talk with ums and ahs, and sometimes they use more likes than they should, trying to work on it. But
Of
it's okay to
course.
bring all those elements. And thank you so much for sharing this.
I love this. Yeah.
What would it be sort of your parting thoughts to somebody who feels called to maybe storytelling, feels like they have a message to share and they're not coming at this from a space of, I've got this and I'm great and I'm going to, take, but more from a giving space? I know there's so many amazing humans out there. And I would love to hear their stories. What would you say to them to get this process started?
Yeah. I mean, I think that just like how it started with me, I had stories to share and I started to share them very informally, just as means of connection with one other human being. And the way that made me feel when I did connect with somebody after revealing myself to them was so affirming that I couldn't couldn't stop, wouldn't stop, kept on revealing. And I think that's where it starts. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, I'm going to just tell everyone to give me a call and I'll help them to tell their story. That's where
Yeah.
it might head, because if anyone with a story, and this happens quite a bit, people, people will be willing to share something so raw and vulnerable. And they may or may not know that they are safe with us. They will find out that they will be felt and heard and supported and guided um, in in the best way possible. But a lot of people don't know that until they're in it. But that's the thing is that it starts with that first time you share that one vulnerable story with somebody who will hear you. How does that make you feel? How much more likely are you to share this story again with somebody else? And it just builds and builds and builds. Make yourself seen, make yourself known, put yourself out there. It's scary, but the reward is connection. And there's nothing better than that. So I hope that answers your question.
It beautifully answers my question. I did think that you were going to tell everyone to call you, so I'm going to end with that. How can our audience learn more about the amazing work that you're doing at the Monti? How can you support the Monti? Folks in the triangle, outside the triangle.
We have a website, themonti.org. That's MONTI.org. And we also have a very active community on Instagram. We post little clips from our live shows, and we love to have fun. I mean, that's what we're trying to do. Always have fun, and we don't take ourselves too seriously. That's the vibe of the shows, but we do take the stories extremely seriously. And we feel that everyone has a story to share, and we want to hear from you. That's my message. We want to hear from you.
This has been delightful. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Amna. It's been great.
You might believe you don't have the time or energy to focus on yourself, but this is exactly the right time to get serious about your well-being. You don't have to do it all alone. I'm here to help. If you enjoyed this video and are ready to take the next step, head over to dramnashabbir.com where you'll find free resources you can access right away. The website link is below. Let's get started on your path to thriving.